How far is a mother capable of going to save her child? This is a question that has haunted me for decades and that has completely changed everything I believed about life, death, and faith. My name is Alcides. Today, I am 75 years old, and I served as a police officer for over 35 years. Throughout my career, I always trusted only what I could see, touch, and taste. Nothing else made sense to me. In 1998, I was a skeptical man, convinced that God did not exist and that the supernatural was merely a product of human imagination. Difficult cases, scenes of pain, and family tragedies were part of the routine. I thought I had seen it all, but I was wrong. There was one specific, seemingly common occurrence that would forever change the way I saw the world. That April night, an urgent call led us to a house far too silent for a home with children. The atmosphere seemed frozen in time, as if something terrible had abruptly interrupted a family's life. There were signs of despair, of struggle, and an emptiness that couldn't be explained by police logic alone. What happened after that incident wasn't recorded in any official report. It doesn't appear in police files, nor in newspapers of the time, but it remains etched in my memory to this day. Because that night, I learned that a mother's love doesn't end with death, and that there are forces that act when all hope seems lost. On the night of April 16, 1998, I was on duty at the police station when the phone rang insistently. A neighbor, visibly nervous, reported hearing screams coming from the house next door. According to her, a couple with 2 small children lived there, and the woman was almost 9 months pregnant. Something was wrong. The tone of her voice made it clear that this was no simple domestic dispute. My patrol partner and I headed straight to the address. On the way, he mentioned he had a bad feeling, something he couldn't explain. I ignored it. I always ignored that kind of feeling. To me, intuition was just coincidence in disguise. What mattered were the facts, and the facts awaited us in that silent house. The front door was ajar. We went in and found ourselves straight into the kitchen, pots and pans on the floor, broken dishes, food scattered everywhere, as if dinner had been abruptly interrupted. No sound, no response to our calls. A heavy, almost suffocating silence filled the air. We went to the back room. That's where we found the woman lying on the floor. As we approached, we realized she was no longer breathing. Her hands were on her stomach, as if she were trying to protect the baby until the very last second. That image affected me more than any scene I had ever witnessed in years of police work. We called for help and started gathering information from the neighbors. That's when we found out. There were 2 children, aged 4 and 6, and nobody knew where they were. Some reported seeing the father leave the house alone shortly before. We searched every room, called out their names, but there was no answer. The children had simply disappeared. The case was quickly handed over to the civil police. The main suspicion was that the father had taken the children with him when he fled, perhaps to hide or blackmail someone. Exhausted, I ended my shift with the feeling that something in that story didn't add up. There was a void that neither the procedures nor the hypotheses could fill. I got home late at night. I'd been living alone since my divorce, and the silence in the apartment seemed even heavier after what I'd seen. I took a long shower, trying to get the image of that woman on the floor, protecting her belly as if she could still save someone, out of my head. I went to the kitchen and made some instant noodles, without any hunger, just out of habit. I ate mechanically and went to my room. My body was tired, but my mind wouldn't switch off. I lay down on the bed and stared at the ceiling, trying to understand why that incident had affected me so much. Cerca de 15 minutos depois, senti algo diferente. Não ouvi passos, nem barulho algum. Mas uma presença tomou o quarto. Quando virei o rosto em direção à porta, meu coração quase parou. Ela estava lá, de pé, imóvel, olhando diretamente para mim. Era a mulher da casa. She didn't have the violent appearance of someone at the crime scene. Even so, the shock left me paralyzed. Her eyes locked on mine, and then she spoke, in a calm, firm voice. My children are trapped behind the wardrobe. Please help them." Panic gripped me. Sweat poured down my face, and my heart felt like it was going to burst out of my chest. In my entire life, I had never believed in apparitions, spirits, or anything like that. But that vision was too real to ignore. I knew, in that instant, that something needed to be done. I didn't think twice. I got up, still trembling, dressed hurriedly, and left the house as if I were running from something, or rushing towards it. On the way to the police station, I tried to rationalize what had just happened. I told myself it was exhaustion, the shock of the shift, my mind playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew. It hadn't been a dream. I arrived at the police station breathless. I called 2 trusted colleagues and told them that something wasn't right about the case. I didn't mention the apparition. I only said that I had a strong feeling that the children were still in the house and that something had gone unnoticed. They hesitated, but agreed to accompany me. We needed authorization from the investigating police, as the location was under investigation. After a few phone calls and quick explanations, we went together to the residence. The street was silent, lit only by streetlights. Upon entering the house again, the atmosphere seemed even heavier than before. We searched everything again: closets, bedrooms, kitchen, bathroom. Nothing. Desperation began to grow. That's when my gaze fell on the wardrobe in the back bedroom. It was old, leaning against a wall that seemed thicker than usual. My heart raced. We asked him to move it. When the piece of furniture was pulled away, something became clear: a false bottom, perfectly camouflaged. Carefully, we removed the back panel. What we saw next has never left my memory. There were the 2 children. The older one had her hands tied. Both were frightened, crying softly. When they saw us, their crying turned to relief. In that instant, any remaining doubt within me simply vanished. Removing the children from that hiding place was one of the most intense scenes I've experienced in my entire career. The space was small, stuffy, clearly used as a drug stash. If it weren't for that detail at the back of the wall, we would never have found them. It had gone unnoticed by 2 different teams. Logically, it was impossible. I picked up the younger one. She was trembling, hugging me tightly, as if she were afraid of being left behind again. The older one was crying, confused, asking for her mother. No one there had the courage to answer. We just said that now they were safe. As we walked towards the exit of the house, I felt something different in the air. A shiver ran through my body. Instinctively, I looked up towards the kitchen entrance. That's when I saw her again. She was there, the mother, but not as before. There were no injuries, no marks of violence. Her face was serene, clean, illuminated by a peace that seemed otherworldly. In her arms, she held a baby, the child who never got to be born. She looked me in the eyes and smiled. She didn't say a word this time. She just nodded slightly, as if thanking me for something she can no longer do alone. In that instant, I understood that my role in that story was complete. I felt a mixture of fear, relief, and something I had never felt before: faith. I, who had always only believed in what I could touch, was facing something that couldn't be contained in reports, testimonies, or rational explanations. When I blinked, she was no longer there, but the feeling remained. Something inside me had changed forever. The children were immediately taken for medical and psychological treatment. Despite the trauma, they were alive, and that, in itself, was a miracle. The hideout where they were found was used by their father to conceal drugs, a place so well made that it fooled experienced investigators. If it weren't for that second visit, they would never have been found in time. Days later, the father was located and arrested. The evidence was clear, and the escape attempt didn't last long. I learned that he remains in custody to this day. The harm he caused scarred many lives, but he couldn't overcome that mother, not even after death. The boys went to live with an aunt and uncle. Over time, they started smiling again. They grew up surrounded by care and love. I followed everything closely, even after I retired. A silent bond formed between us, as if that rescue had made me part of their story. As for me, I was never the same man again. That skeptical policeman who only believed what he could prove died that night. In his place was born someone who understands that there are forces beyond our comprehension, and that a mother's love surpasses any limit. Today, at 75 years old, I have unwavering faith. I believe that everything has a purpose and that no one is abandoned by God. That mother taught me this without words and saved more than just her children. She also saved my hope. How far will a mother go to save her child? Perhaps as far as life ends and love truly begins. This story taught me that not everything can be explained, but everything can be felt. Some choices echo beyond time, some losses carry meaning, and some gestures, even those coming from the invisible, change destinies. The faith I found that night was not born of fear, but of the purest love that exists. And since then, I know, no one who truly loves ever leaves alone.